Nick, how's it going?
Hey, Yemen. Hey, just getting off the plane. Give me 2 minutes.
Dylan, are you there?
Yep, what's up?
How's it going?
Pretty good. This routers article is pretty interesting. I'm not really too sure.
What part caught your eye?
I don't know. I joined the space to learn more, honestly.
Well, do you want to read it for us for a second? Just go ahead and read the whole thing.
You want me to read the whole thing? I
Yeah,
don't know
you
if it's
got
a good
this.
idea.
Why not?
I'm a bad reader, man.
Come on, you got this.
I'm not too sure, man.
We're waiting.
Nah, you got that?
Okay. Let's see what this article says. Elon Musk's Tesla overhaul hits executive bench, he touted. Just over a year ago, Elon Musk shared the stage at Tesla's Investor Day in Texas with 16 executives who gave detailed presentations of the company's technology and growth plans, then lined up behind their boss in a show of solidarity. We've obviously got a significant bench sitting here, Musk said at the time. Now at least 5 members of that team are gone, a Reuters analysis shows. Musk and the 16 executives on the stage last year could not be reached for comment. 2 senior executives who flanked Musk on Investor Day last year are gone, Zach and Drew. Baglino dumped $181 million in Tesla stock as he left. Rebecca Tinichi, who headed up charging team, was one of the 2 women on stage on the Investor Day last March. Tunichi and much of her team were sacked this week. In a posting on the social media platform X, Musk said Tesla plans to grow the Supercharger network, etc. Another executive on the stage who left was Colin Campbell, the former VP of Powertrain Engineering. The loss of so many executives is something that Tesla board should be monitoring, blah, blah, blah. Lots of departures. You shouldn't lose that many quickly, etc., etc. With Tesla's revenue, profit, and share price falling, Musk has reasserted his dominance at the company. For some investors, this is more important than the executive churn. Elon's not there, and we have this turnover. That's very bad. Gene Monster management partner with Deepwood Asset Management. Because if Elon's there, he's going to draw on talent to keep things going. Musk has signaled significant strategy shifts in response to falling sales and tougher competition. Changes that could leave out executives running operations no longer central to the new plans. Tesla's future lies in AI and robotaxis, Musk told investors. Musk is putting action behind those words, ordered 10% cut in staff and scrapped plans for new low-cost reliant vehicles in favor of revamping existing models to develop lower-price entries. Tesla say it will pause construction of the new factories until the company's sales have reached 3 million vehicles a year, enough to fill up the automaker's existing production operations. If you buy the narrative that Tesla is an AI company, fundamentally, it may not be cause for concern, said Casey Boyce, VP of Data Analytics Advisor SLA. Other senior Tesla executives who were not among those on stage have left in recent weeks. Daniel Ho, a former Ford executive and 10-year Tesla veteran who had been director of new car programs, is no longer with the company. Rohan Patel, a former Obama administration, blah, blah, blah. Another executive to exit was Ali Arabello, senior director of human resources, okay, and Martin Vieca. Unlike most other departure executives, Vieca received a warm send-off. Having a strong bench, there's nothing in this article. Tesla stock is up 0.8%. The Fed announced that they're keeping the rates the same. but lowering, they're slowing down quantitative tightening from 60 billion to 25 billion. So that's a pretty significant slowdown, but you know, the rates are still high. We'll see what kind of an impact this has on all the loan rates as it relates to Tesla. The spread between 5-year treasuries and the new car auto loan rates could be impacted by quantitative tightening, quantitative easing type of stuff. So we'll see if it has any impact. Mortgage purchase applications remain low, depressed. ADP employment change was positive 192,000, above expected 175,000, below the prior 208,000. This Friday, we're going to get the other employment report. U.S. manufacturing PMI was 50. U.S. ISM manufacturing index for April was 49.2. Job openings dropped from last month's 8.8 million to 8.48 million in March. So employment market is definitely easing still, which is what the Fed wants. Construction spending was negative in March, 0.2%, significantly below the expected 0.4% positive. Oil prices are down 3% to 79. The yield curve is down about 10 basis points, as I think Powell is still speaking. Any questions, comments? Please request to speak. All chip maker stocks are coming down substantially, as we discussed for many months here. They seem to have peaked and now on their way down. Starbucks is down 17%. CVS down 17%. SMCI down 11%. AMD down 7%. Starbucks is an interesting one. Let's see if it has any macroeconomic indications. We can't find any macroeconomic indications from Starbucks earnings. Let me see the headlines here. I'll probably take a deeper look at this after the call, after we end here. Two downgrades from Deutsche Bank and William Blair. Okay. Starbucks struggled to meet consumer demand as Q2 same store. UBS cuts Starbucks price target to 85 from 95. Okay. Starbucks shares dumped as consumers cut back on costly coffee. Interesting. Worst day since 2020. Expensive coffee finally takes a toll. So this could indicate some consumer weakness. Badly missing Q2 earnings estimates. First sales dropped since 2020 during global pullback. Revised full year guidance Q2 miss. Wow. Interesting. I'll have to take a closer look at that. We just stop there. down 17%, PE ratio of 20, market cap of 83 billion, dividend yield of 3%. Wow. Going to read this Reuters article on Giga castings. Automotive news, citing Reuters article, Tesla retreats from next-gen gigacasting manufacturing process. Tesla backing away from innovations in gigacasting is another sign that the EV makers is retrenching. Tesla has backed away from an ambitious plan for innovations in gigacasting, is pioneering manufacturing process according to two sources familiar with the matter, in another sign that EV makers are retrenching amid falling sales and rising competition. Tesla has been a leader in gigacasting, a cutting-edge technique using huge presses with thousands of tons of clamping pressure to die-cast large sections of the car's underbody. On a typical vehicle, the underbody can consist of hundreds of individual parts. Last year, as developed a new small vehicle platform, it aimed to punch out the underbody in a single piece. Reuters reported last September, citing 5 sources familiar with the automaker's gigacasting operations. The long-term goal was to radically simplify the manufacturing /costs. But Tesla has since halted the effort, opting to stick with its more proven method of casting vehicle underbodies in 3 pieces: 2 gigacast front and rear section and midsection made of aluminum and steel frames to store batteries, according to the sources familiar with the matter. That is largely the same 3-piece method that the company has used. Well, we talked about this before. I mean, Elon has denied going down the single piece a couple of times in the past. So decision to hold off on the potential manufacturing breakthrough marks another example of Tesla slashing short-term spending as they adjust to falling sales and profit margins, softening EV demand globally, and intensifying competition from rival EV makers such as China's BYD. Tesla last month laid off more than 10% of its global workforce. A handful of senior executives have also resigned or pushed out. Such moves also reflect a fundamental strategy shift, with Tesla now focusing on more developing self-driving vehicles than on pushing for huge growth in EV sales volume, which many investors had been counting on. The step back on gigacasting occurred last autumn. The people said before Tesla decided in late February to halt development of a new affordable car, often called the Model 2, which would have been the first vehicle it built with one-piece gigacasting. On April 23, as it released earnings missing Wall Street expectations, Tesla said it had a simpler, faster plan to produce more affordable cars after shelving the plans for Model 2, expected to cost $25,000 and be released in the second half of 2025. Instead, Tesla officials said it would produce affordable models using a current platform and production lines. On an investor call, CEO Musk declined to provide details on planned new offerings or their price target prices. Tesla has not entirely abandoned the small vehicle platform it had planned for the Model 2. Instead, it will move forward in developing a self-driving robotaxi on the same platform, Reuters reported in the April 1st story. One of the 2 sources familiar with the automaker's gigacasting operations said the suppliers involved are now adapting Tesla's 3-piece process for the next-gen vehicle. Both sources said the automaker decided last autumn to halt work on the more innovative and difficult one-piece casting process. At the time, the rationale for the decision was to speed development of the now defunct Model 2 and avoid any costly delays or manufacturing problems, the two sources said. Tesla and Musk have said Giga casting helps the automaker reduce costs over the longer term, but the process requires large initial investments and is difficult and time-consuming to perfect, automotive manufacturing experts say. Experts in vehicle manufacturing said that Tesla's more conservative path on Giga casting is no surprise, and it reflects the pains it has experienced historically in launching complex and innovative vehicles on time. The automaker's highly experimental Cybertruck arrived last autumn at a far higher price than predicted after substantial delays to work through the manufacturing issues. Tesla is still struggling to produce the angular stainless steel pickup in mass market volumes. Hold off on one-piece Giga casting will save the company from making massive short-term capital investments in manufacturing and design, said Terry Wachowski, president of U.S. engineering company CareSoft Global, who has led teardowns in engineering output of numerous vehicles, including Tesla's. Would they rather have done to all one big? Sure, they would have, but at what cost? James Womack, a vehicle manufacturing expert, said, and researcher at MIT, said Tesla's Giga casting pullback reflects the company's scramble last year to launch 25K car to catch up with Chinese EV makers over the dominating low-cost EV segment. But pushing forward with an innovative production technique would do little to help sell the Tesla car to consumers. It's not very exciting from the standpoint of the public and buyer, and you don't know where this is going, really a big cost saver or not. Interesting. All right. And Luca Greco says, this article from Reuters is claiming that Tesla was developing a new way to cast underbody of cars instead of casting. But in reality, assuming that the story reported by Reuters is true, the conclusions presented by the authors of the article are still extremely misleading. This is not a shift in strategy to back down from growing production volumes and focus on AI or control short-term spending. That's normal decision-making, plain and simple. Tesla explored two options: unbox process with traditional Giga castings and full underbody casting. They chose to go down unbox process presented in Investor Day, which has tremendous benefits and fewer technological challenges to overcome regarding the casting process, which is not yet clear they even give you any real benefits in the overall manufacturing process, says Luca. Let's see if About Tesla wants to give us an update on the software updates that are rolling out. About Tesla, how are you?
Hi, Yaman. How are you doing?
Doing well. What's the latest with the software updates?
Well, not much progress on this spring release yet. The only difference from the time from what we discussed yesterday is that the Cybertruck is now getting, so among the first cars in the US actually is going to Cybertruck. But the bad news for all of us anxiously waiting for this update is that we still don't know which FSD version is included, because so far it's been going to cars without FSD, including Cybertruck. So we're still, in suspense. So as far as other things, so the version, the .6 version, the 12.3.6, went to pretty much most of the fleet already. So more than half of the fleet in the US. So it's rolling out very actively. And since about 30% of the fleet is still not eligible for V12, so it's probably will be the dominant version. It's probably already the dominant version. I'll have to add up the numbers, and I'll post later today where we stand as far as the percentages, but it looks like it's pretty much most cars in the US and Canada are already on this version on v12.3.6. So that's the latest news, I guess.
Thank you. Have you seen anyone talking positively or negatively about 12.3.6?
I just got it on both of our cars yesterday, so I had a quick run on that, and I did watch some videos, YouTube, not too many, but I saw some obviously the struggles with that unprotected left turn and those kind of things. My experience, I only had a very short time on it, like maybe an hour yesterday, and it's been pretty much problem free. There was one issue which which it has struggled with in the past as well, the yellow blinking light. So sometimes it would work, would go through them successfully, and sometimes it would struggle. Yesterday there was one case where it just got stuck on a blinking yellow. I didn't wait long enough to see what it would do eventually, but I had to press on the accelerator to push it through. So that was one case, and then was one other minor concern was it didn't go over the railroad crossing, didn't slow down enough to my liking. So it did slow down a little bit, but it wasn't enough for that intersection. So I had to actually disengage because of that, just for using Meta's term, comfort critical disengagement. Other than that, I didn't have any issues. It succeeded in all intersections. It went through all roundabouts, no issues at all. I'm honestly running out of scenarios where V12 would fail. Something where V11 would fail most of the time, V12 just has no issues whatsoever. I think I'll start maybe this weekend. I'll start looking for more challenging routes, because the ones I've been using so far, it's just not causing too many problems anymore.
I feel like we need a better term than comfort critical. That's not critical. Yeah. What's a lighter term than critical? Let's see. Critical synonyms.
I mean, it's a joke, obviously, but I kind of like it.
I don't see anything. Comfort dodgy. Anyway, Clay.
Did you hear the All-In podcast discussion on Tesla by chance?
No, can you give us a TLDR?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Chamath actually gave a really good and long and detailed background on Tesla investing since the early days, and basically started talking about Master Plan Part 1, and then how that led into Master Plan Part 2, and essentially, and even pulled it up, did a screen share, and went through and basically said how Elon is basically executing on everything that he said that he would be executing on, and that basically he kept referring to the sharps on Wall Street, and that they are seeing the benefit in buying in, and he thinks that really the smart money on Wall Street is really buying into the whole thesis moving forward. And then it was interesting, though, what I found the most interesting was he had this really great intro into it, but then somebody asked him a question about the full self-driving market, which he said he thinks is a massive market, and then he had no idea who Waymo was, which I thought was really funny. So he's talking about the Sharps, but then he didn't know who Waymo was. So I thought that was kind of funny.
is this
But it was,
this is Chamath?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it goes to show you have these Sharps on Wall Street, and obviously Chamath, great legendary investor and all this. And it just goes to show I don't think the level of discussion on All In Pod is even close to the level of discussion on here, which is just kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean they have a wider net of things that they talk about. You know, we're more focused on Tesla, but yeah, I mean, how do you not know what Waymo is? Maybe I don't know. Maybe he was busy with something at the time. Anyway, Sammy,
Yes, Stephen Mark Ryan did an episode on that All In podcast. If you want, a short, sweet version of it. My question to you, Yaman, was: do you think price cuts are incoming? It certainly looks so with the Model 3 long range. And how do you think that's going to affect midterm? Like, we had a coffee bet a year ago. You thought we'd sell 2.2 this year. Do you still think that?
I sent an invite to Machine if he wants to comment on that too. Let me check something real quick. So, you're confident that price cuts are coming?
Yeah, the disconnect between the performance getting the $7,500 credit and the long range not getting it, I think that has to change. That can't remain. I think it's foolish that there's even a short period of time where that's the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure about price cuts. It's still, I don't know. I can't see both ways right now. I think maybe this slowdown or quantitative tightening, I think, may lead to a bit of a decline in all the loan rates. And if that happens, maybe we don't need to cut prices further. But curious to see what Machine thinks. So you think there will be more cuts on Model 3?
And Model Y, I think they're
And Model Y. Wow.
yeah, I mean, look at the production versus delivery numbers. We're at highest days of inventory I believe we've ever had. And if I had to guess, the
Yeah,
numbers
but
will grow.
people keep saying that days of supply is highest, but what they're missing is the denominator in Q1 is depressed. So have you ever seen that small fine print below that slide on investor relations that shows days of supply, how it's calculated?
No, go on.
Yeah. So let's pull this up. I don't want to misquote it. But it went from something like 15 or 16 to 28. And it's not pure low. It's also because the denominator shrank. So our inventory rose, but not as much as that days of supply would indicate. And people are kind of missing that, I think. So at the bottom of page 6, investor letter, it says, one second. Days of supply is calculated by dividing new vehicle ending inventory. Okay, so new vehicle ending inventory means as of March 31 by the relevant quarter's deliveries and using 75 trading days. Okay, so relevant quarter deliveries, Q1 deliveries, right? And Q1 deliveries were 386,000, dropped from 485,000 previous quarter. So you have to adjust for that. I mean, to the extent that you believe that was a one-time thing, which I think that it was, you have to adjust. So we should see a massive drop in that sales days of supply in Q2. So, and on top of that, Tesla's days of supply is industry leading, you know, and we have FSD improving. Maybe it will help a little bit. We have a seasonally strong quarter. Q2 and Q3 will also be seasonally strong. And there's some positivity in the markets today. So I think the auto loan rates will start coming down from here on out. So maybe that'll help. So I'm not convinced that we need to cut prices more. And while we made the bets, I think that I was expecting the Model 3 to qualify for the $7,000 credit. I mean, that didn't happen, which is shocking to me, honestly. That Tesla didn't have some sort of backup plan to make sure it qualifies. And that's a major issue, obviously.
Lease buybacks would solve the issue.
Machine?
I'm going to go back to eating in a second, but I mean, the Model 3 is different from the Model Y. The save the Model Y. That's a deeper analysis. The Model 3, very simply, cannot be sustainable at the current prices, as Sammy said. Keep in mind, the Model Y used to have the federal EV tax credit, and now it doesn't. Excuse me, Model 3. And, you know, they have the performance at a certain price point with the EV tax credit, but that's all because it's low production quantity. And they've been keeping production low. There's evidence now again in Q2 that they're not producing that many. They're slow rolling this out. And the reason is they can't conceivably produce many Model 3, short range, long range. They don't have the batteries, US built batteries. They can't qualify for the EV credit. And therefore, no one's going to buy it. No one can buy it. They'd have to lower it $7,000. And they can't because they wouldn't make money on it. They would lose money, I guess. So what the solution is what they're doing. Don't produce that many. Save up a few 2170 batteries that are built in the US for the performance. And that's the best they can do to eke out, you know, minimize the losses.
So do you think they're going to cut prices?
I'm not sure, because if they want to increase production, they're going to have to cut prices. But I don't know if that's a net positive for them in terms of profit and cash flow. So I don't know if there's a good solution.
Yeah, I mean, there comes a point where further price cuts start, you know, impacting you negatively on an incremental basis, not just like if you cut prices and it leads to higher deliveries and you can allocate your fixed costs over a higher number of units, then it's not as bad. But if you're cutting prices to like below marginal cost, then you have an issue. That's a major problem. So I think there's a bottom to these kind of like price cuts, even for Tesla machine.
Yeah, I think there's a bottom, but that doesn't mean they're in a positive state. There's a bottom because they're going to restrict production for the Model 3 until things change in the economy. I mean, why do you think they've pivoted to wanting to use the current production lines for other vehicles? It's because they're realizing that they're over capacity. They have too much production capacity, especially without the batteries. This is a failure of 4680, in my opinion. You know, not that it was planned many years ago that there was going to be a tax credit based on the battery, but the fact is that the delay in the 4680 has prevented scaling out of US-based production, which would have allowed the Model 3, the Model Y, to everything to get the tax credit, or as many as possible. And now they don't have that flexibility. and it seems like they're now downplaying the 4680. It's not a good sign. But at the same time, they said that the cost should be competitive with other battery makers by the end of the year. I'm assuming that's including the tax credits in their statement, and that's why they're going to say it's cost competitive. So I just think if you look at the prices, used car prices, it's flat now. The gap between used car index and the Model 3, Model Y is at its largest value ever, but it's also stable. It's not getting bigger. So I'll be curious to watch when that I'm gonna say when, not gonna say if, when that starts decreasing again. That would be a bullish sign. But it all still comes back to what does this all mean in terms of earnings overall and expectations of earnings, and where is the stock valued at versus those expectations? And that is
What's the figure you're watching for car gurus? You said what difference between what two figures?
the used car guru index, and just because it's easily to visualize the Model 3.
Yeah, I mean it's only 2%, right?
What the
In the last
difference?
30 days. Yeah,
Or the difference or the drop?
the difference declined quite a bit. The difference declined quite a bit. Yeah, it's not as
Yep.
big as it was before.
No, now
So
the
it's
difference.
It's already It's already started shrinking.
No, I don't think so.
Yes. Yes.
Nope.
Yes.
No, incorrect.
Yes.
I'll show you the plot, but for the last month, the delta between the car guru index and the Model 3 is about, I think, $3,000. Model 3 is $3,000 cheaper on average. We know this list price and all the assumptions there, but it's not getting any bigger. It's not going down relative to the index. The index has gone up a bit, probably because of seasonality or whatever else, and Tesla prices have flattened, which for Tesla is good because they were going down. Excuse me. So I don't see their data that they're necessarily going to have to cut prices anymore for the Model Y. However, we see evidence yet again in Q2 that they're limiting production. And I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just they have so much inventory. So they're going to draw down inventory this quarter. So I expect deliveries.
Dude, why did Omar lose his blue checkmark again?
Why
did you lose your blue checkmark again?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Well, I changed my name back, so they just remove it when you do that.
What was it before? A supervised?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that joke's over.
I don't understand why it takes forever to get it back.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid.
It's so
It was
stupid.
just like that
What is the
controversy.
reason?
It was
Yeah.
just that controversy when they first launched the new verification system, which is now, nobody cares about it anymore. People were changing their name to, Nintendo, and then, posting Mario, like giving the middle finger or whatever.
Machine, people are.
I don't think what Machine was saying was really accurate,
One second, before we get to that, Machine, people are asking for a quick update on your options plays. The people want to know.
I don't think, there's a lot of hoopla now that I'm bragging.
I emphasize quick. I emphasize quick updates. Not an elongated update where you pump your chest and pat your back and give a medal to yourself.
Here's
Just
a quick update.
Quick
update. After earnings, I bought calls knowing that there was going to be a positive response, even in addition to the aftermarket response. I bought calls at 158, and then on Monday at 190, I sold those. And then as the stock kept going up closer to 200, I noticed the volatility was very high. And so I sold, number one, some long dated call spreads. And then on top of that, that's something I never do. I sold a weekly call spread at 200, 300 call spread, with the volatility being so high. And then I closed those out yesterday with the down.
Okay, so you basically so you're flat. Got it. Okay, that's really all we know. And like that's all people want to
I'm
know.
saying
They
I
don't.
profited both
Most
ways.
people they have no idea what a call spread means, or let alone selling a call spread or volatility. They just want to know you're flat.
I made money on the way up and a little bit on the way down, and now I'm out.
Okay. And are you sad that you closed out your puts on SMCI?
Yeah, I am. But now I'm thinking of buying.
SMCI?
Correct.
Oh my God.
Well, here's a company that actually is making money incrementally quarter over quarter.
Okay, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Omar, what are your thoughts on used Tesla prices?
Used Tesla prices?
Yeah,
Well,
what he was saying about that.
I was just going to comment on the new Model 3. First of all, I just don't think it's accurate that they're withholding production. I think that there were legitimate ramp up issues. They were gearing up for the performance. They were having some other issues, providing certain cars. Like if there weren't any ramp up issues, they'd probably just be delivering an equal amount of black and white interiors. It wouldn't make sense to only hold white interiors. So, I mean, demand for these things is pretty strong. My cousin just bought one after getting an FSD demo for my dad. I'm buying one as early as this week or next week. The new performance model, which I think just looks amazing. It looks better than the Model S, honestly. And I'm getting the EV tax credit on it point of sale. And they're just taking $7,500 right off the top. And even for the long range and standard range models, they are still qualifying for the EV tax credit if you lease or if you buy it as a business. And then again, the US is only 33% of global sales, obviously. So I think he's really exaggerating the impact of the tax credit. Like I'm literally buying a Model 3 and using the point of sale credit. And I don't think that they're artificially holding back production because they don't have any demand. I think demand is actually ahead of supply on the Model 3 right now. And I think that with the Model Y, a lot of people are looking at the Model 3 instead of the Model Y, at least from what I've talked to, because they like some of those new features, but they're not able to deliver those as quickly as the Model Y, which they have more in inventory of. So, all this kind of like negative read on anything, oh, it's a disaster, they have no demand. I mean, people really like these new cars. They're so much better. Like everybody I've talked to is just in love with the thing, especially people who are upgrading from a 3 or a Y. The issue I see it is really just that there were no cars for sale before, right? So demand for Teslas is a little bit higher because it was the only car you can get. I was just walking yesterday from the car wash to get some lunch, and I just saw some cars, for sale on the street. They said $11,000, $12,000. That wasn't really the case before. You didn't have the option to buy that $11,000 or $12,000 gas car. So a lot of people bought Teslas because compared to the alternative, they were actually comparatively cheaper. Now as supply is returned to the market, that's creating a competitive environment both on the gas car side and also on the EV side, which are facing a lot of liquidations where there's a little bit of pressure. But Tesla's still selling more EVs than anybody else.
Machine. Omar says you're wrong.
Tell me, what's the wait list? What's the backlog for buying a Model 3, Omar?
For the Model 3 performance?
No, all of them. All of them. What's the backlog?
Yeah, so my cousin's order, they said, I think May to June.
Not that far out,
considering
there's low production and it's a month of backlog for like no cars. I mean, I just feel like I'm living in a different world. like bizarro world. Yeah, you guys are living in bizarro world.
No, I'm living in your world. I'm with you.
I just come
Don't
on.
worry.
Man.
I'm
Like, I feel
with
like I'm
you.
being
Don't
trolled.
worry. Don't. Yeah, that's fine. You know, Troy's convinced that Tesla's going to have a down year-over-year deliveries, production deliveries. And I think the only thing that can change that if Cybertruck production accelerates a lot from here. Go ahead.
I just like they're not making many of these things. There's not a backlog. The car is great. It's not about the car. Okay, it's not about the company. It's about how much it costs and how much people are willing to pay. And the Model 3 does not get the EV rebate now. The long range, short range do not. No one wants to pay that much more
Not
money.
true. Not true.
Stop. Just stop for a second. Okay. We
Incorrect.
know the performance. I said the long range and short range. Okay.
Those also qualify, assuming you lease it or buy it as a business.
Oh, okay. Whatever. Yeah. If you lease it, we're talking about buying. Yes. Okay. And people are not going to do that over the Model Y. They're not. Okay. Not pay more money for a Model 3 than a Model Y. It doesn't make any sense. So there's all these perverse economics going on.
I mean,
and that's a
I'm about
problem.
to buy a Model 3 instead of a Model Y.
Are you buying a Model 3 Performance?
Yeah.
So congratulations. We know that counts for the EV credit because there's limited battery supply. They're not making that many of that. So what? This is irrelevant. We're talking about in aggregate, the ability for people to pay for these cars. In aggregate, Tesla cannot supply the number of cars that count with the EV credit. The only way they can get around this is what you said, is the leasing, right? And maybe, Yaman's talked about this many times. If you offer a lease buyback, then more people will go for that. If you offer nice interest rates, that may be a better way.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. That's not right.
Okay, but you've talked about it. You said you theorized that maybe that would help. So
No, I didn't.
that what are you talking about? The lease buyback? You've God. You
No,
people.
I'm definitely against that idea.
I mean, if the EV tax credit was the issue, then they could do a lease buyback and you would be able to then get the EV tax credit even if you wanted to buy. Because you could just lease, get the credit, then buy out the lease. So I don't think the EV tax credit's the issue here. Many EV buyers actually don't qualify for the credit. So if you want to get the credit, you can get the credit. There's ways to do it. If your income is too high, then it doesn't really matter anyway. So I don't think that they're artificially holding back production. I mean, obviously they're under capacity globally, right? So that's a reality. But I don't think that it's just sort of, oh, we don't have any demand, so let's not produce any of these. They legitimately did have to introduce this new production system, introduce the new Model 3 Performance, which is even a little bit different. And then also, just work with suppliers and get everything ramped up. There were some minor challenges there, just normal stuff. But I think it's going to probably be much higher in the second quarter.
It's not yet.
So you don't think
The
that
deliveries will be
Model 3
higher.
production is going to be greater than Q1?
It should be, but it's not that much. It's not ramping up at a steady pace. And it's now May. It's been 4 months for these little issue quote.
I mean, they
little
haven't even started delivering the Model 3 Performance yet. Everybody wants this thing, okay? I just went and was delivering flowers with this guy, and he's also getting a Model 3 Performance too. Everybody loves the Model 3 Performance. You can't judge what the demand is going to be before deliveries have even started.
Machine, those flowers, Omar's friend's deliverance for your mom. I sent them.
She had a cheap date.
What was I going to say?
The path to year-over-year growth in deliveries is simple because they actually have excess production capacity.
I mean, you guys can bet on Q3 Model 3 deliveries. I mean, we're gonna know. Let's say production Q3 or Q2. Just bet on Q2 Model 3 production figure.
Well, I don't know if they're going to break that out, but I mean, I think we're kind of headed into a recession, honestly. That's kind of what it feels like. But I think really the Model 3 production and deliveries will be higher in Q2 than Q3. The path I see to year-over-year growth is this. They have excess production capacity. If the orders come in, they can ramp up production without a ton of capex or needing to build new lines or anything. They can produce at 2 million a year easily with the production capacity they have. So if you had, for example, a launch of FSD in China or a launch of FSD in Europe, expanding internationally along with a launch in the US, and if, this is a little speculative, of course, but if you were to launch these things and if they were to stimulate demand and orders of the existing cars, there I think you have a path to maybe 1.9 million or 2 million deliveries this year.
Machine, then Joseph.
I'll just say, in aggregate, I mean, I'm not going to bet. We could try to make a bet on Model 3. I'm not saying Model 3 production is going to be less than Q1, but it's not going to be anywhere near full capacity. There's already plenty of evidence of that. I would just say, in aggregate for the quarter, there's going to be substandard production overall and higher deliveries because of the inventory. And this is going to be a point of contention for the Uber bulls who have been arguing that Q1 was simply a byproduct of supply chain issues. And that if that was the case, then they could just keep upping production and keep delivering more and more cars. It seems
I mean, Troy estimates Model 3 deliveries to be in US 22,000 in Q1, and he has a 39,000 in Q2. That's a massive jump. Like, that's not anything immaterial, dude.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying there's not some demand for Model
And then he
3.
has 62,000 for Q3. How is that? I mean, he's saying basically it's going to get to full capacity by the end of Q2. So what's the problem?
Well, we'll find out then how deliveries go. I could be wrong.
I mean, the problem isn't the tax credit or the Model 3. The problem is broad-based. It applies to all their models. The problem is, why wouldn't I go buy a cheap gas car hybrid, which is actually for sale now? That wasn't for sale a few years ago. Instead of a, $40,000 Tesla that, well, I'm not really sure. I have to install a charger. I'm not sure about the range versus, $25,000 for a hybrid. And, that I know how to use. So I think that's really, part of the calculus, interest rates, other things. But it's really, I think, sort of a broad-based set of headwinds that are affecting their entire model lineup.
I mean, just because this guy just doesn't want to spend money on his wife, even though she's been begging for a new Model 3 for years now. And he's like, no, I'm going to spend the money on Popeyes, not you, on chicken. Just because that, he thinks everybody else is in the same bucket and as cheap as
Yeah.
he is.
No,
Just
get
go
her,
get a
get
Model
her the
3.
performance or the long range, honestly.
Yeah,
It's really
exactly.
smooth. It's really quiet. Like, you shut the door and it's like silence. And you go over bumps and stuff, you don't feel anything. It's so smooth with the new suspension. And it's got those cool ambient lights. It feels very open. Like, I'm very excited to take delivery of mine.
Joseph. Your connection is really bad, Joseph. Your connection is really bad, so we're going to move on. All right, so we had another round of layoffs today, or was it yesterday? We got the news today about the autopilot team, and these are laborers, importantly.
No.
So,
That was from a couple
yeah.
years ago, right?
I was okay. Let me just see. I mean, I just posted your thing.
Wow, you're about to
Yeah,
start
Oh
that was
yeah,
the
I
more
did
fraud.
spend a
serious
couple
Wow.
years ago. Oh my god. Okay, never mind.
The point I was trying to make is like when this happened, everyone said, "Oh my God, how are they going to develop autopilot?" And it turns out those labelers actually weren't important. Now, I went to a supercharger station yesterday and everybody was still charging. Somehow, even without Rebecca Tanucci and her team, the chargers continue to work. So I think the community made this weird logical leap where they said, oh, some people are being let go from the supercharger team. This means they're not going to do superchargers anymore, or they're not going to build new superchargers. And that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like they're cutting back a little in terms of the pace of expansion, but it's not like they're going to forget how to make superchargers or not be able to build new ones in the future.
Machine that Michael.
Keep in mind they got rid of the entire team, right? Like almost all of them. And so I do expect they'll rehire some. Maybe there's a few stranglers kept around for maintenance. And they're going to build out more. I don't think anyone argues that. But I think what I hope can be agreed on is that the rate of growth of build out is going to slow significantly.
Michael, man, you are such a genius.
Yeah, so I do agree that the rate of growth is going to slow in terms of new locations, but also ports as well. And I have some background in this a little bit because I work at a utility, electric utility, and I know a little bit about what their process is. And I think the 500 people team, without 500 people, you're definitely not going to have as fast growth. But I think what Elon did kind of there is a justification for it. I don't buy the whole, like, oh, Elon, we don't know what Elon's what he's we don't know what he knows. So we should just let him run the business. We know that superchargers are one of the best, most attractive pieces of the product. And Elon has been wrong before. He has, in 2019, he wanted to close all the stores. And then he went back on the decision when he realized that that's not great. I think I agree. He's probably going to rehire a lot of the supercharging team. He probably wanted to just cut the team. Rebecca was probably not playing ball, and then he wants to just do from zero-based redesign.
All right, I'll bet
from
you a
first
coffee bet.
principles.
I'll bet you a coffee bet that
What?
Tesla will not rehire majority of the supercharging team.
I didn't say majority.
You said a
No.
lot of it. So are you saying like a few
I said
people or
some.
what?
I said
Okay,
some of
how
it.
many? How many? What percent will be rehired?
Well, it depends how much they want to invest in supercharging.
Well,
And
the thing is, like, but your thesis is that Elon has been wrong, and this is a critical part of the business, and he will walk back. So if he's hiring back like 10%, that's not walking back. You know, that's
how do
just
you know?
it's
How do you know it's
fine-tuning.
10%? I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to put a number on it. So
okay.
they laid
Well,
off about 500, most of the team, almost the entire team. What percent? So if it's not majority, then it doesn't support what you're saying.
it really depends what level of investment they want to put in the supercharging network. And I would argue that they don't actually need to do all that much investment in the supercharger network because they can outsource it.
So how is that walking back what he said? He still laid off most of the people.
Because
And he said they're going to continue to put in some superchargers and focus on 100% uptime. So that's all in line with what he said. But you're saying he's been wrong before. He's going to walk back. This is critical. And now you're like not willing to make a profit that. Are you taking a strike then?
So he needs to hire back some people to get to his promise of expanding existing locations. I'm not sure what he's talking about with uptime. The uptime was already quoted to be like 99.99% or something, or 99.98. But to expand existing locations, they still need to go to permitting, zoning boards. They're still going to need for expansions. They're still going to need to go to utilities and work with utilities.
Why don't we do it? You know what we can do? we can bet on number of supercharging stations or stalls, say 6 months, 9 months from now, which we can verify. And I think it would be a good way to kind of for us to put this down on a coffee bet, because I don't think he's going to hire them back. I think this is a major strategy shift
He
on the
already
part of
started
Tesla.
he already started hiring some of them back.
No,
We
that's
know
fine.
that.
But the most of the team will still be laid off, I think, because I think he's actually making a conscious decision that this is the way Tesla needs to go.
Oh, I agree. It's they spend like 500 million or so on supercharging deployments between the team and the actual capital deployment. They 500 million per year or so from my calculations, and that's like 17,000 H100s. That's a lot. So I mean, I think from his, if you put yourself in his shoes, it kind of makes sense if you're trying to go all in on autonomy. Um, so I'm not saying he's wrong necessarily. I'm saying he has been wrong before at times, and we shouldn't just say, like, oh, he knows what he's doing. But this is all in on autonomy. So you either
No,
disagree
yeah,
or agree.
I completely disagree with you. First of all, it is a fact that he has a million times more information, data, and foresight into what Tesla's plans are than any of us do combined. That's
Agreed.
a fact. Okay. And just because he's been wrong before, he walked back a decision before, doesn't mean that's not a fact. That's still a fact. So
Agreed.
his probability of being wrong is much lower than any of us armchair quarterbacks.
That's fair. Agreed with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to waiting for my Aptera, Omar, then Temp.
Hey, Yaman, thanks for letting me talk here. I just wanted to let you know I asked my son, who actually worked on the Supercharger team. He was in the back end software team back in from 2020, summer of 2020 to 2021. He ended up, not performing well and getting kicked out of the company. But I told him that that the whole team had been, or 500 people had been fired. And he wasn't too surprised. He said a lot of that team, a lot of what he was doing was like, making sure it worked, the currency was right in different, locations like China and whatnot, and making sure that people got, rebates or weren't charged for charging sessions that didn't go well. So a lot of tickets that he worked on were like related to that type of stuff, and they weren't really. So I just think that, I'm not sure if the 500 people had anything to do with the construction of Superchargers so much as the back end management of the software, because it seemed like there was a lot of meaningless work that could have been taken over by artificial intelligence in the back end. Anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you. Omar?
Yeah, I think with the store closing, that was in 2019. Sales had declined, I believe, 33% sequentially. They'd lost the EV tax credit. He was worried about the business going under. So it was a decision that made sense at the time, but things improved a little. They said, okay, we don't have to do this. I don't think that Elon would have let these people go if what they were doing was important, or if the company would have suffered without them. Like, who builds the superchargers? It's not the supercharger team. The team in Buffalo builds the superchargers. Now, who programs the superchargers? Who designs and engineers the superchargers? It's not the supercharging team. It's the design and engineering team, the powertrain team. Okay? So these are the guys doing the real work. What are these 500 people doing? And, of course, when people get laid off, they're going to make a big stink about it and say, oh, we were so important. This is going to be a disaster. But, for example, this guy, William Jameson, he tweeted, confirmed, Elon Musk has let our entire team go. What this means for the charging network, NACS, and the exciting work we're doing across the industry, I don't yet know. Trying to make it seem like it's going to be this horrible loss. Warren went up and pulled up his LinkedIn. Strategic programs charging lead for the last 8 months. Here's how he defined his job. Define strategy on key charging topics and lead a team of technical PMs focused on execution of programs for the charging business. What does that mean exactly? Define strategy on key charging topics and lead a team of technical PMs. So the technical project managers, they're the ones who are actually doing it, right? So what is he doing? I mean, this is just classic Tesla, eliminating layers of middle management. I don't think anyone disagrees that the supercharging network is important, that it's something they should continue to invest in over time. But if you're trying to get hardcore about cost cutting, this seems like a big chunk of fat to cut that frankly hasn't impacted the operation of the charging stations yet. Maybe long term we'll start to see some impacts, but it's not immediately clear that these 500 people were doing something very essential. I mean, again, 5,000 charging stations, 500 people. I'm not sure that's the optimal ratio.
Machine, then temp.
So I'm somewhere in the middle here. I think Omar makes some good points, but he's also an extremist, making it sound like they will operate the same without those 500 people. I mean, this is obnoxious, to be honest. And the CEO himself tweeted that now they plan to grow the Supercharger network just at a slower pace. So yes, some of those people going away will limit the growth, and maybe that's okay. That's a separate discussion. So the fact is that what this comes down to is Tesla is cutting costs. They need to. They're spending so much money on AI, so they're cash flow neutral or close to. And Elon Musk is one who takes the extreme method of layoffs, and that is just cutting out an entire department. And I'd be honest with you, I love it. This is what I would do if I ran a company. It's what I would do. The government should do, because the fact is, companies, governments, you build up more and more institutions, more and more bureaucracy. You can't just undo it bit by bit. That'd be great, right? If you just bit by bit undo these positions that are built in, they become useless over time. No, they get grandfathered in, they just stay there. And you can't get in there and just wean out each one, especially when you have people protective of their workers, like maybe this lady was in charge of superchargers. So he takes the Argentinian prime minister method and just fuera, tape it, pull it away. Fuera, supercharger division, fuera, you're gone. And the fact is, it sounds brutal, but if there's like half those positions are actually useless, how is he going to get through there and get everyone to fire the right people? It's just too much work, right? So it's actually
Okay, we got it, man. Oh my gosh, you're just repeating your point.
Fuera.
Temp.
Machine made most of my points, 100%. But I think the larger point here is just looking at Elon's process, right? Step number 2 in his 5-step process is simplify. And he follows that up with, so the simplify is remove parts and processes. Those processes include people. So you remove all these people, and he says if you are not adding back 10% of the things you removed, you are not removing enough parts and processes.
Omar, Steven, then Michael.
Yeah, I think the timing is interesting with his return from China. And I saw a post by a Chinese person, and they said, in supercharging, most of Tesla's investment is here in the U.S. And they've got about, I think, 20,000 stations in China. And I think they have more than that here in the U.S. But they said China has 1 million fast charging stations. So Tesla's like a drop in the bucket. As a matter of fact, most Tesla owners don't even charge at the supercharger stations. They just charge at whatever station. So that's really what we need, is like 1 million fast charging stations. And he said in China, most of them are owned by the utilities or third parties. Tesla can't build 1 million chargers by themselves, right? You really need people across the industry building chargers, building NACS chargers, that everybody can use. But, you look at that market, the number one seller in that market, BYD, they don't have a charging network. They just use other people's charging, and it hasn't impacted their sales. So the supercharging network and, the $1 billion investment in building it out made sense when EVs were like this nascent thing that weren't supported. But we live in a very different world in 2024. I'm not sure Tesla needs to continue to invest in the same pace going forward. Strategies like selling their charging hardware to companies like BP and others who can manage it themselves and have an NACS compatible charger and a great charging experience with high reliability, that may be a better strategy for the way forward. And finally, just focusing the business on autonomy, robotaxis can't charge at the current superchargers. So we may need a very different strategy for what charging looks like as we continue to outlay capital towards building out that charging infrastructure.
Michael.
Yeah, so I can see there's some confusion about exactly who the people were that were laid off and what they do. So these people, there's a distinction between the team that designs the actual supercharger posts and builds the prefab, which now is like really fast. I think 4 days, they recently tweeted. That's a separate team. Agreed with Omar. And then the supercharger deployment team is what was cut. This team is the team of project managers, construction leads, design managers, etc. And basically, what do? Is they do all the leases. They do the designs for the actual, not for the supercharger posts, but for all the conduits and all the pieces that interconnect to the utility infrastructure. And they also work with the utilities and submit the designs, revise the designs. They also go to the planning and zoning boards of each of these towns and get the designs approved. So that's basically what they do, what this team does. I'm sure some of them do like menial work, like what Waiting for My Aptera was describing. It's the majority of the work. My utility was actually meeting with some of the Tesla folks recently, and they wanted to accelerate the timelines of their deployments. And they wanted to increase collaboration and kind of see what opportunities there were to accelerate those timelines. Every single one of them were let go. Every single one of the Tesla people in that meeting.
Thank you. Stephen, I'm listening.
As part of the 2021 infrastructure bill, I thought Tesla agreed to build 3,500 approximately superchargers. I was wondering if anyone knew if that order had already been met on Tesla's part, or if they still had superchargers outstanding as part of that agreement they made. I was wondering if anyone knew that.
I don't think there's any official agreement they made. I think they kind of made like a broad commitment. But the contracts for public charging are really handed out on a case-by-case basis. I wonder if that was part of the frustration that Elon thought that they should be winning more of these contracts and they weren't.
Machine.
On this note of Elon's personality, I made a tweet, a thought process question for people, which is, if Elon was an outsider evaluating Tesla, look at how he evaluates.
He would hire himself. Yeah, I replied to that. You got your answer. You agree with my answer.
Oh, did you agree? I know Omar disagreed.
What are you talking about? I disagreed, and then you agreed with me.
I don't remember. Strike this last
asleep?
15 seconds. Remove it from the space.
All right. No, I will prove it to you. based on layoffs, if Elon Musk was evaluating the performance of the CEO of Tesla, he'd fire him too, said Machine. And then I said, look, I pinned at the top. I don't think that's true. The fact is market cap is still 10x what it was in 2018, 2019. And the operational milestones, including revenue and adjusted EBITDA, have been achieved. So I disagree with your conclusion. And then you liked my reply, which means I agree with you fully. I submit to your
That is not-
superiority.
That's not what a like means. And I responded elsewhere. Elon Musk evaluates people on what they've done lately. And there's no way, if you to take away the man and your God and just look at the performance of the company, he's laying off an entire Supercharger team. He would look at this, if you saw a CEO of a company underperforming, tweeting, worried about acquiring another company, all this stuff, which is fine. I don't care about. I'm just saying for him, not me, for him, he would absolutely fire that person. I'm not saying he should be gone. As I said yesterday, he's the best in charge for handling Robotaxi and Optimus. I'm just saying you have to. I find this like a peculiarity in the thought process of people. They can't recognize who he is as a person and how he would operate, that he would absolutely fire himself. He's not looking, well, I did a great job in 2018 bringing Model 3 ramp. He's looking at the last 2 years and like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I see the distinction. Pennington. And then about Tesla. Pennington. I think Pennington is having difficulty coming off mute. About Tesla, go ahead.
We should look at all the actions on recent actions by Elon Musk from the point of view of autonomy. And I think what he just realized is that what he was planning all along, and in the second master plan and everything, now he's finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with V12. So he finally realized, okay, it's within the reach, so we need to move full force towards this. Everything else is secondary. So what will take us to that goal? And let's realign the company with that goal in mind. That can be, that obviously falls into the reasons of why the Model 2 or whatever that the cheaper model and everything. Yes, it was the idea to combine those two things, like the robotaxi specialized model and the consumer model into one platform, but that would create a problem of maybe one would be holding the other one back. So by splitting those two things, now he opens the road for the robotaxi and the specialized version of the car for robotaxi. So nothing is holding back. So now he can design without compromising anything. So that's one part of it. As far as the charging network, does it really help the robotaxi the way it is right now? The charging network right now is not compatible with the robotaxi concept, as Omar already mentioned. So there is it's not helping. We need to redesign it. So maybe, and I'm just guessing, but maybe he just looked at this and said, okay, we need to step back. We need to have another look. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see how we need to redesign, perhaps from scratch, the charging network, or how we want to evolve the charging network so it would be helpful for the robotaxi. We need to automate the charging process, whether it's wireless charging or some robotic charging or anything. Just the current approach doesn't work.
Okay.
So that might be the reason for the pause and just to rethink.
Thank you. Pennington.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, a week ago was earnings. The week prior to that were the announcements of the mass layoffs. Then to receive news like this week, when it probably should have been done 2 weeks ago, feels impulsive. It does not feel like was a well thought out decision, and it just gives the market, it gives me the impression that Elon was gone for a while. He just came back and he realized, oh my God, we have all these messes, these fires taking place, these inefficiencies taking place, and you just sort of have to ask, had he been more involved? Had he been more present? Would this have happened? It just seems chaotic. It seems inconsistent with what he's been saying, and particularly when you go back to a year ago when we were all happy that the NACS was being adopted all over the place. Now there's a huge business shift. It would have been nice if this was done 2 weeks ago and explained during the earnings call.
Temp.
I just have to say that if predictability and consistency are what you're looking for, Tesla is not your company.
Yeah. Kubas.
Hi guys. First of all, Tesla is the car company so far, right? No matter what, they're making money selling the cars.
Yeah. So
They
so
used to be
first
on the
time speakers.
monopoly. They used to be on the monopoly market.
First time speakers are required to ask questions. Your question should start with a question word, which are what, why, how, which, who, where, kind of stuff. And your question should be 10 words or fewer. So while you devise your question, Mira, go ahead.
Yeah, I think listening to some of these people talking, I think the robotaxi idea is the charging will not require superchargers. There's going to be a 40 kilowatt pack. All they need is a plug it in. That's it. They don't need to spend all the extra money on the supercharger. So at the end of the day, when Tesla has a fleet of robotaxis, at the end of the day, they go park somewhere together, they charge, they get cleaned out, and they're ready to go the next day.
Okay. Kubas, do you have a question?
Yes. How about the legislation and all the laws that we must change? That's gonna take years, in my honest opinion. How would you see that? That's it.
Omar?
I think it works. It seems crazy. People get upset when you fire them. But then you just look at how Tesla's performed and you look at how the legacy automakers have performed and you look at the difference and how do you explain that? And it turns out counterintuitively that keeping lame people in your company is actually more harmful than just getting rid of them. And, Steve Jobs has talked about this. He says A players love to work with A players. So when you put A players together, magic happens. When you get B and C players in there, it's not so great. Now, one thing that I've learned about Elon is he's got a really good gut for what's bullshit and what isn't. Really quickly by talking to you, he can figure it out. So, Drew decided to leave the company. Drew's direct reports then went to report to Elon. So Rebecca Tanucci started reporting directly to Elon. She lasted about a week reporting to Elon before Elon decided that she and her team had to go. Now, this is kind of, a known thing. People tend to not last long as direct reports of Elon. But I think he ultimately came away with the impression that they weren't worth the cost. What they were doing, the company could do without him. I heard somebody say, oh my God, Elon has no idea what a mess he's created. They were paying rent for each of the supercharging sites manually. I'm like, huh? They're manually sending the rent payment like, they're renting an apartment? Like, this is something that should probably just be automated. Why does that need to be someone's job? A computer could do it, right? So, we're going to find out. You're hearing all this doom and gloom. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. We're not going to be able to charge and they're not going to build any stations. So, we're going to find out. If it really was a disaster and it's the end of the world, then things are going to start falling apart pretty quick and we'll all be able to see it. But if we are still able to take road trips and the chargers still work and we're not seeing any issues, then was that cost really necessary? And I think I don't know, right? I'm not in the company. I'm not talking to Rebecca Tanucci. I'm not even sure what these people are doing. I have some idea, yeah, construction, project management, whatever. But clearly he, having looked into it, thinks the company can do what it needs to do without them. And I'm inclined to believe him until I see something going wrong. And if something does go wrong, then go get some of them back. Reverse the decision if you need to. But so far, I went to a Supercharger and things seem to be working the same.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I would last under Elon as long as I last under your mom.
I have to think about that for a second. Um, you know what? If you guys noticed, charge points and EV Go shares are up a little bit. Did you notice that, Machine?
Yeah, I took a look yesterday at ChargePoint. I don't know if I noticed much yesterday. I haven't looked today, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, since the decision came out, these stocks are up about 15-20%. Do you think this increases their probability to survive?
No, they're trash.
Yeah, I think so. Temp and then Michael.
Actually, maybe Michael knows the answer to this question. I saw it mentioned recently that Tesla may be selling a bunch more credits to legacy. Is that going to materially affect anything next quarter or two?
I'll say I'm not sure, but I think they sell like 450 million per quarter of credits. I would expect that to incrementally tick up. Maybe it's 100, 200 million more, but in the grand scheme of things, it's helpful. I don't think it's like too material. But what I wanted to say about superchargers, if you're a charging network operator or someone who wants to get into the charging network operating business, this is a great opportunity for you. And the opportunity is hire some of those people that Tesla fired, um, and buy Tesla's chargers, which we know to be the cheapest, the most reliable, and the fastest to produce and deploy. So buy Tesla's chargers, hire the people who were in charge of working with utilities and town boards to site and permit and lease the land to deploy those chargers, and deploy the chargers. And I think that it actually works out for Tesla well too, because they don't have to spend all this capital paying these salaries and investing in these supercharger sites as much. They could have a third party go and take the scraps of this business because they've already built the highest return chargers. And instead, they can spend the money on H100s, compute infrastructure, all the things that are, from Elon's perspective, much higher return. So I do think that there will be a slowdown in deployments of chargers. I don't think the chargers are going to stop working. I think the existing chargers are going to be just fine, like Omar said. But there will be a slowdown in deployments.
Omar, then Ahmed.
Yeah, so the Musk algorithm, as they call it, when I toured the Fremont factory recently, this is actually written on the wall of the factory. They put it on little posters so people remember it. So, number one, question every requirement. Each should come with the name of the person who made it. You should never accept that a requirement came from a department, such as the legal department or the safety department. You need to know the name of the real person who made that requirement. Then you should question it, no matter how smart that person is. Requirements from smart people are the most dangerous because people are less likely to question them. Always do so, even if the requirement came from me. So question every requirement. Do we need a 500 people supercharging team? We should question it. Number two, delete any part or process you can. So if it's not necessary, delete it. You may have to add them back later. In fact, if you do not end up adding back at least 10% of them, You did not delete enough. Okay. Then number 3, simplify and optimize. This should come after step 2. A common mistake is to simplify and optimize a part or process that should not exist, right? So first, just delete it, remove it. Now it doesn't exist. If it does need to exist, then you want to simplify and optimize. Number 4, accelerate cycle time. Every process can be sped up, but only do this after you follow the first 3 steps. In the Tesla factory, I mistakenly spent a lot of time accelerating processes that I later realized should have been deleted. And number 5, automate. This comes last. The big mistake in Nevada and Fremont was that I began trying to automate every step. We should have waited until all the requirements had been questioned, parts and processes deleted, and the bugs shaken out, then automated. So that's the final step. If what the Supercharger team is doing can be automated, if, for example, they can pay the rent payments automatically, that's better than paying someone a salary to do it. So this algorithm guides all his companies. And oh, hell yeah, I just got the spring update on my Cybertruck. This algorithm guides all his companies, and it's really the secret to their success. So this is really something that I think more companies should internalize.
Thank you. Ahmed and Machine.
So I think it's partly two things also that Hallmark's catalog already sort of touched upon. In China, there is a huge amount of like charging network that's already established, and Tesla doesn't have a huge footprint there. I think that's where America's going as well. I know that big box retailers are already in talks with contractors to put in charging networks within their lots. So think Walmart, Costco. And ultimately, these machines, the best machines and the cheapest machines, are going to be leased or bought from Tesla. If you think of the amount of times that you're going to want to charge your car and doing something else, it's at these big box retailers. So it sort of diminishes the purpose of expanding the charging network at such a high rate as it was doing before. It was necessary, and then now it's not so necessary anymore. And the other part that Mars also touched upon is Tucci eventually direct reported to him, and he calls out bullshit really quickly. Like, I trust his judgment at this point. That's all.
Machine.
Yeah, I mean, that quote from Elon that Omar read is so great. And not only should it be applied to every company, it should be applied to every government, but it'll never happen. I think it's so valuable, that way of thinking. As an engineer, person who loves efficiency, like, it's the only way to go. And thinking of that, I really like the part about saying it's even more dangerous when some command comes from someone smart. And that's why I struggle with Meta. I have to challenge Meta, whereas Yaman and Omar, it's easy to combat when they're inefficiencies. By the way, I've been so motivated by Musk laying off all these people that I'm really thinking about doing that to this space. Yaman, fuera. Omar, fuera.
Now, what fantasy are you living in? Miro. Miro, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I already asked my question earlier. Sorry.
Okay, great. Brandon?
Yeah, Omar, I kind of got like a two-part question. So, from my understanding, Drew Baglino was in charge of basically the electric part of the electric car, right?
He was the VP of battery and drivetrain, yeah.
But so also like the charging and stuff too, he was in charge of.
Yeah, that came under him. Rebecca Tanucci reported to him.
Okay, so I mean, maybe you kind of alluded to this once, but it's true. So, as in terms of besides cost, Lucid pretty much has a better drivetrain than Tesla. and maybe Tesla's
Well,
batteries
it
aren't
has a
the best.
smaller drivetrain. It's more efficient. It's not necessarily easier to mass produce. But yeah, it has some better qualities. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So besides price, I guess, and like production wise, so maybe Drew wasn't that great. I mean, maybe this is for the better. Maybe they'll replace him with somebody better. For instance, I mean, he didn't get rid of Rebecca Tanucci, which obviously Elon saw a reason to. So that's one sign. Hopefully, going forward, maybe the charging will get much better.
I mean, you know, I think Drew was good. He was selected primarily because he was there since the beginning, working alongside JB. So when JB, the co-founder of the company, left, who was responsible for battery and drivetrain, they said, "Okay, put Drew in charge. We have some continuity there." But he was good, but I don't think he was necessarily the best person in the world. It's just not the case that Tesla has the best battery and drivetrain in the world. I mean, you look at some of these Chinese companies, you look at, some of the, I mean, like the EQS, for example, it has a 118 kilowatt hour battery and 300 some miles. So they're less efficient, but there is definitely stuff out there, Lucid, Chinese companies that's very competitive or better. So I don't think they have the best in the world. I think it's very good. I think it, has a great driving feel, and they're able to mass produce it. So those are definitely, accolades I would give them. But I would like to just see them be the best in the world in every way. Come up with explosive new battery architectures, an all new type of motor that is way more efficient, or really like that's the kind of stuff Tesla should be doing. And I mean, if 4680 had ramped faster, for example, we'd be in a very different situation in terms of, for example, the tax credits that Machine was talking about. Although the Model 3 doesn't use castings in a structural pack, so they couldn't really use the 4680s anyway. But obviously, we'd be in a much better situation if we had a ton of 4680s. So sometimes, it's hard to say goodbye to somebody like Drew, who has given 18 years to the company and has been amazing. But I think Elon is kind of good at looking at the situation objectively and thinking, okay, I may have to say goodbye to a great friend, but what matters, there's 140,000 people at this company who are depending on the company being successful, having better range at a lower price than the competition. And there's really the world that's depending on Tesla to be successful, the country depending on Tesla to be successful. So most people only think about the person sitting right in front of them, and they don't want to let them go. But they don't think about all the other people who aren't right in front of them, who are affected by that decision as well.
Machine, folks in YouTube live chat are unanimously agree that your Spanish sucks, that you can't roll the R's. Can you try again? Would you like to redeem yourself?
Yo concordo.
No, that's
I
horrible.
suck. My R's
Oh my
suck
God.
in Spanish.
Yeah.
Actually, I speak more Portuguese than Spanish. But anyways, speaking of ethnicities, I think basically I found a pattern. I think Elon Musk hates Italians. Baglino, Tanucci. It's so obvious. I hope he doesn't come after me.
All right. Foreman, and then thinking out loud.
What is the first thing, speaking of the Elon's method, what is the first thing looked at whenever Tesla, or it's say Elon company, goes and starts deleting things? What's the first thing they generally look at?
Omar?
What do you mean, what's the first thing they look at? Everything is that's the default. Just delete, delete, delete. Even things that people think you need. Hey, we got a radar on this car that stops it from hitting things. Okay, let's delete that. Oh, we got these ultrasonic park sensors. Yeah, let's delete that. We have a lumbar on the passenger side. Sure, delete it. Just delete everything. That's his philosophy.
All right, thank you.
Thinking out loud.
Yeah, hey. So I got a question about using your personal car as a taxi, right? One is I'm in Denmark, so it's took ages to get FSD. We still don't have FSD out here, and we're going to need that running for quite some time before we get to be able to use my personal car as a taxi. And then second, how will my car be protected from vandalism if something like that happens? Is that Tesla that pays me back for the damage to the car, or is it insurance?
Yeah, it's a good
You got cut
question.
off, but yeah, go ahead, Omar.
So if you were to give a ride using your car, it'll be insured for the purposes of that ride. So any personal use of the car, you'd get separate insurance for that. But Tesla would provide the insurance that covers the commercial liability, similar to what Uber and Lyft do. Now, there'd be several ways that you could control what type of jobs your car does so that you can protect against vandalism. Of course, the cars have an internal camera, and anybody who was seen vandalizing would be banned from the network and removed. There would also be kind of like a star rating system, right? So you could, for example, say, okay, I only want 5-star drivers, or sorry, 5-star riders, or 4-star riders, or 3-star riders, or okay, this is dedicated to just robotaxi use. Any rider, regardless of the rating, can get into this. So they can kind of have a reputation for how they treat cars. If you have a good track record of treating cars well, you're probably not going to vandalize it in the past. If you're someone who likes to get drunk and you know often trashes the cars, throws up in them, then that could be reflected in your rating. And you'll have a lot of controls. For example, you'll be able to say, okay, I only want to deliver food or deliver packages. You'll be able to say, okay, I only want people to be able to request my car if we are friends on social media, if we, if they're on the approved friends list. I only want my friends and family to be able to borrow it. So you'll have a good set of access controls for defining what kind of jobs your car can do, what criteria it should accept, and if there is vandalism or damage to your car or a car crash, then that would be covered by Tesla and the rideshare network, and that insurance would come out of the cut of the revenue. So Tesla would take probably 30 to 50% of the revenue, and the insurance would be included in that.
You're good. I see Flacco in the audience. If he wants to come up and talk some trading action with Machine, maybe, I think that would be a good conversation. Machine, what did you think of this up and down move around the Fed meeting?
I'm not sure. I can't rationalize these like 1 hour moves. I would just say the Fed meeting overall is kind of flat. It seems like they're gonna, not change the interest rates, but they're gonna change a bit of how much money they're putting in the system. So I think you mentioned that earlier. So that might help interest loan rates a bit. I just think it's a message overall from Powell is really, I don't think we're going to expect interest rate cuts meaningfully this year unless something changes. And in terms of Tesla, just thinks overall we're going to expect loan rates to approximately stay around where they are. It might come down a little bit, but nothing super significant. So waiting for that to happen for margins to increase seems unlikely for this year. And, just kind of big picture, standing back to what we were talking about a year ago, we were hoping a year ago that we would already be, down a few percent. And look, we've made no progress. And so it's a bit unfortunate.
Michael?
You think they're going to cut 10 to 20% of the workforce and the margins aren't going to improve throughout the rest of the year?
Well, no, I mean, that's a good point. Obviously, if you cut enough of the workforce, your margins are going to improve. cutting a lot of the workforce that's not on the production line is not going to improve COGS. It'll improve operating margin, not gross margin. I'm not sure how much they're improving gross margins on the actual cars with these layoffs. I know they might just cut production partially, which is what they're doing already in Q2. So it's unclear. I do agree, though, operating margins should improve some. I think their estimate was maybe 300 million a quarter. So all else being equal, that might be about 0.1, 10 cents of earnings increment.
Michael, then Omar.
They made cuts across the board. It's gonna hit not just OpEx but also COGS. I know I remember reading rather I don't want to say I know. I don't want to be too certain, but I remember reading that there was some production associates who were also cut in the layoffs. So that's one. And two, totally disagree that production is cut, is lower. Production is, I think, going to be much better in Q2.
Much better. Michael, you gotta make some coffee bets, man. You're making some big calls here.
I made a coffee bet with you about the deliveries. I feel less good about that after the Supercharger thing because I think there is some headline impact on people like being skittish about this stuff. But so I don't feel as good about that one. But I'm ready to make a coffee bet. You wanted to make a coffee bet about number of Supercharger deployments? What were you
Yeah,
proposing?
we can do that, or you and Machine can make a bet on production figures for Q2. We need some more coffee bets. We need some coffee bets to get these things on paper.
Okay.
Like somebody, like for example, is Steven in here? Hold on one second. Is Youth in here?
I'll do a
No, he's not
production
here.
one with Machine for sure.
Okay. While you guys kind of maybe think about your numbers, do your research, meaning go to Troy's page and look it up. Omar can talk.
Yeah, so 2 points on macro. I think one of the good comments that we heard today was that it's unlikely that they're going to raise rates, but they're more holding them for longer. So there's kind of a positive and negative there. Some people were fearing that the next move could be a rate increase. Those comments threw a bit of cold water on that, but it does seem like we could go through the year without seeing any rate cuts potentially, depending on how the inflation readings come in. So that's not great for Tesla. As soon as rates start coming down, you're going to see an effect on Tesla right away. Because I remember when the Fed first indicated that there were peak rates, you saw a movement in the stock right away. So I do think it'll be absolutely material, and it sounds like it's going to be a little bit later than we had hoped for. And I think that's really what's spurring a lot of these moves by Elon. I mean, he said before, I think if the Fed holds rates too high for too long, this is inevitably going to end in a recession. And I'm seeing a lot of indicators that kind of point in that direction. It's definitely more of a possibility than before. And I think he's gearing up for that with these reductions. And my second point is I just wanted to point out this isn't just about the charging team or about Drew or anything. If you actually read the leaked email that Elon wrote, he said, if anybody has more than 3 people on their team who are not necessary, excellent, and trustworthy, then I'm firing you. Okay? So you better fire every single person who's not absolutely necessary, incredible at their job, and isn't going to leak anything to the press, or I'm going to fire you. So, and to cut the charging team, that's a message like, hey, I'm serious. Okay? Nobody's safe here. You think you're safe? I just let go of the entire charging team. Okay? So you better cut, and you better make some serious hardcore cuts. What he's really saying is he's giving a message throughout the organization that we need broad-based cuts to OpEx. And I'm intrigued to see what the impact on Q2 and Q3 financials is from an OpEx perspective.
Machine, would you like to respond to Omar's? As soon as the rates start coming down, we're going to see a positive impact on Tesla.
I mean, I think that's possible. Sentiment,
Wow.
can get ahead of.
Do you think it's likely?
Well, I'm just saying, I think sentiment can get ahead of the actual result, right? And if you start seeing interest rate cuts, some people might be expecting an increase in, demand and earnings, and so that might elevate the stock price. And I don't know if it's going to be a reasonable reaction or an overreaction. Like, a 25 BPS cut is really not significant to Tesla, but the market might overreact to that. That's possible. I don't think meaningfully it would take a few percent.
Did you see Powell's comment one-liner today? I don't know where it is stagflation. I don't see the stag or deflation. That's so funny.
That's good. And I heard most of the first half hour. I don't know when that was. I also have kids in the background, so can't really double task. But I wanted to mention again to Michael, do you want to know? Acting like cutting the production line employees doesn't mean that production is going to go down at all. Of course, I disagree. I don't know how much trimming the fat you can do on the production line. And in fact, we already see production drops this quarter versus last quarter. Go look at Model S, Model Y, VIN registration, Model Y in Austin. The production rate is already lower than Q1. And part of that is because they have massive inventory that they need to draw down. So it'll be interesting to see where deliveries come out. I expect deliveries to be higher for sure this quarter than last, but are they going to even be year over year higher? It seems unlikely. And so I don't know how you look at that. I don't know if that's looked at as positive or negative. It's kind of lukewarm. But production will be lower year over year, almost with certainty, I believe. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, they're going to save a bit of money, but what's coming first, the chicken or the egg? Are they saving money to make more profit, or are they losing profit so they're trying to not make it so bad?
So your line in the sand is production is going to be down year over year. That's your line?
Oh, sure.
It sounds like it. Yeah. Do you think it's up?
Okay. Yes. So production.
Wow,
in
we got
Q1,
a coffee bet. We have a coffee bet. Let's go.
Yes. If production in Q1 was 440K, Q1 23. Oh, Q2. 1 second. Let's see. What was
Q2.
Q2 number?
460,000.
That was deliveries.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about production, I think. Oh, Q2 was a good production quarter last year. 479. I don't know if it gets
What do you think
that
it's going to
high.
be?
I
What do you think it's going to be?
I think 460K plus.
Machine, what do you think?
I will easily take the under.
On the 460?
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Michael. Well, there we go. He gave you another 15, 20,000. So 460 is the line in the sand. And we have a coffee bet. First coffee bet between Machine and Michael. Perfect. I'm going to type this up while Temp talks.
I was actually going to ask you, Yaman, have you seen that Dave & Buster's is going to allow gambling on video games?
No, I didn't know that.
It's a real story. So I think we should make something here where you can put this up on MetaCalculus or one of the betting forums, and people can join in on the dollar action here. Could be big.
Perfect. A way
Yeah.
for people to lose even more money.
Yes.
Machine. But you know, I'm kind of more on, I think,
money.
machine side on this. Like, they came in significantly under for Q1. I don't think they're going to do 460,000 deliveries in Q. I mean, I hope they do. That would be an amazing sequential jump, and the market would love it. But I feel like a lot of those same headwinds are still there, right? I mean, maybe some have improved somewhat, but things haven't changed somewhat. I mean, some things have even gotten worse in some ways. So I think they'll probably come in under 460,000 deliveries for Q2. I'm hoping they'll get at least over 400,000. I think that's pretty easy. But, you know, if you're under for the first half of the year, then you've got to not only, you know, jump over to, you know, beating it year over year, but also make up for the gap. So it's hard to see really how they grow unless there's like some miracle that happens, right? Like they really achieve autonomy and like all the cars just start flying off the shelf and we have like insane sales growth or something. But seems like the most likely scenario is a year over year decline in sales.
Michael, the machine, that's Scott.
Yeah, Omar, we're making the bet on production, not deliveries. Deliveries is a different story. At first, I thought it might be higher year over year. I'm adjusting that now. That's probably unlikely. I probably lost that coffee bet with Yaman, because
But
there's
they, you know,
headline risk.
they had a like a 6-month period where they produced 1 million cars in 2023. So that tells you that they could have produced 2 million cars a year. And instead, I
Yes.
think they only produced like 1.8 million. So, you know, you can say, yes, I'm talking about production, not deliveries. But if demand is under their production capacity, then they won't produce as many cars.
Yes, but then they also said that the factors that caused Q1 deliveries to be like terrible, they were blaming, you know, there's some seasonality effect, there's the Berlin arson attack, there's all these one-time factor, the Fremont ramp of Model 3, which I believe will be better in Q2, much better. So there was all these things that were one time that are not recurring. So that's why I feel pretty good that, and they said this on the earnings call, that they don't expect them to recur at this point. And also the CFO said, we expect inventory buildup to reverse. Which, what does it mean? It means deliveries are greater than production. I am skeptical, but he did say that.
Machine.
I just want to verify first before I speak. Is this bet locked in? Iman, have you
Yes.
written it out?
I pinned it at the top. Have you guys seen it?
No.
I don't see it.
I just want to make sure before Michael goes crying into the corner.
Okay, hold on. Listen, man. Everybody is, first of all, this is like, I'm not going to call him Michael Jordan, but a good basketball player of coffee bets, taking on this young guy who just stepped onto the court and freaking blocking the shot. And you're like, oh my gosh, look at me, I blocked your shot. Relax. This is his first, second coffee bet. Take it easy on the guy.
Well, you know, he's very confident, so that's kind of where it comes from. But I apologize, Michael.
Here,
you know,
I love it.
There you go.
I love
I'm
it.
gonna
Please,
lower.
please, no, please.
I'm gonna lower the rim to 7 feet for you. The fact is that you're right. I don't think you thought through this. They said they're going to draw down an inventory. They're going to draw down an inventory to maybe increase deliveries more, but that means less production this quarter. Okay, because they already have 50,000, 100,000, whatever the inventory is, to draw from. So they don't need to produce as much this quarter and still have a better result than Q1. So therefore, one number minus another number means less production.
Yeah.
And we already seen that
I mean,
data.
this is the similar, this is the similar mistakes that everybody has made in their first, second copy bet. So this is just, training wheel. That's all right. You lose one, you lose two, and then you start thinking a little harder for the third one. That's why we have copy bets. Michael?
I'll just say that I am looking at different data than what Troy is looking at. I think 460K is doable, and I disagree that the production is slower so far this quarter.
Okay.
Wait. So you think basically that they're going to draw down inventory?
Stop blocking. Stop blocking.
Do you think they're going to deliver 500,000 cars this quarter, Michael?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so you think the CFO is lying about drawing down inventory significantly?
I think he made the statement. I think he made a forward-looking statement.
You think he's lying? Okay.
No, he made a forward-looking statement, and then Elon went and fired the Supercharger team, and that's going to be in headlines all over. And that's the top concern of buyers. So don't feel as good about what he said, but I think production is still on a good track.
I will commend you. One last thing is that you've gone the line of the conspiratorial quote, doing your own research. Like you have your own graphs and plots about production. Because I don't know, I saw some VIN registry plots that show a clear pattern. Interesting, you have a different interpretation.
Where are you seeing this? Is this on Troy's Patreon?
Yeah.
Okay. Ahmed?
Yeah, I think that.
Michael? Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
I was just gonna say, I just think it's not. I think there's something weird with the data. If you read about what's going on, I can't reveal too much of what he was saying, but if you read about what's going on, something doesn't add up about his data.
So on Troy's Patreon, you're saying if you read that, something doesn't add up.
Yeah, the paid version, which I can't reveal details. I got slapped
nice
on
job.
the wrist.
Oh, you did? Oh, for something you tweeted or said something in here?
Yesterday. This is yesterday or 2 days ago.
Oh yeah. Oh, I slapped you. That's right. I did. Sorry. I thought you got slapped on the wrist.
I deserved it. I deserved it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job selling his Patreon. Maybe next you can sell mine. Ahmed, go ahead.
So I think if you take like the earnings call and like statements that Tesla has made on deliveries in Q1 being held back by shipping and by the arson attack, it kind of explains why they have so much in inventory, and that coupled with Elon saying that he fully expects to beat sales for 2024 from 2023, seems like there's going to be a much bigger jump in this quarter's deliveries than last quarter, just because there's a lot of deliveries that were just pent up and haven't been delivered yet. And the registration numbers starting at least this week and VIN numbers are sort of showing that. So I feel like we're going to be in for a little bit of a surprise in Q3. Those are my thoughts.
All right. In for a surprise in Q2, Ahmed says. By the way, all these layoffs, we're going to see a restructuring cost in Q2 and probably also in Q3, right? You all agree with that? Yeah.
Why
it's probably
Q3?
going to be, well, usually these layoffs happen over some time, and they all have, most will get severance packages, which may last a month or 2 or 3, who knows, depending on the person. So it's probably going to linger for 2 quarters. Michael?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think it's like, I think I read somewhere there was 2 months that people were getting.
I mean, that may be true on average, but I'm sure like Drew Berglino maybe. I don't know. And then there's going to be some stock-based compensation accounting as well. What do you guys think will be the kind of approximate amount of restructuring charges related to these layoffs?
Well, if Machine was saying it's like 300 million savings. That seems ballpark accurate. So I think it would probably be around that order of magnitude.
Yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars of restructuring charges. Did Baglino leave any stock-based comp on the table by leaving? Ahmed?
I'm sorry, Troy. Yaman, repeat the question. Did he leave? Did he not sell all his stock? Was the question?
Yeah, did he kind of walk away from any sort of share or options that may not have vested just yet?
I'm not 100% sure, but when you do leave, you do have a couple of months to sell all of the options that you have. I don't know if he has forward options that haven't expired yet or are going to
Okay, gotcha.
expire. I did also want to say that we were super surprised as to the deal that Tesla made with Baidu, right? I think the sales boost from that is something that nobody calculated for, and that I think will also make China's numbers much better, as the Chinese consumer is very much on the newest, greatest. What can I buy that's going to make my prestige go up?
Yeah. Machine, what do you think is the impact of Biden news and government allowing Tesla on government property going to be on the Tesla sales? And we're going to find out the impact, very soon because those numbers are announced weekly. Machine, any thoughts on that?
I don't understand the question. What was the first part? Allowing what?
So Ahmed said that the Baidu news, Tesla's
Biden.
deal with Baidu, will lead to higher sales in China. Do you agree with that? And then I guess another part would be government allowing Teslas on government property.
I don't think part of Baidu is going to make a big difference right off the bat. I don't know if people are hampering for Baidu maps in their Teslas per se. I don't think that's it. I think this is all an FSD play. And the ability to have a L2 FSD sold in China could certainly boost Tesla sales. I think, but that's not immediate because it's not released yet. So maybe some people will buy ahead of time knowing that it's coming. So I think that part is possible.
Omar?
So, unrelated, but we have a thread out from Green in the last couple minutes about some things that he found in the latest Spring Software update. They are going to be adding support for Amazon Music. He's also seeing what looks like a Tesla voice assistant that would be activated by a wake word. So the car is always listening to it, and you say, "Hey, Tesla," or something like that. And you're able to pull this up. I imagine it would probably be powered by Grok. My mom's EQS has this Hey Mercedes feature where you can pull up the voice assistant by saying Hey Mercedes. And they even have a beta feature, which is a Chat GPT integration. So you can say, Hey Mercedes, who's the president of France or whatever. And it'll actually, talk to Chat GPT and it'll get the answer for you. So I think that's a really cool feature to have in a car where you can't like search the web. And I think Tesla's implementation is going to be really cool with Grok. Then they also have a restricted driver setting where you can have driver profiles that have training wheels attached and extra restrictions. So kind of like a parental control type of thing. And then there's also a new battery pack type.
He said, remember how lithium ion phosphate packs are heavier but don't add extra capacity? Well, now there's another one that affects weight in a different amount. So possibly a new battery pack that they're introducing in their vehicles. Maybe the latest version of CATL's pack or something like that. So just a few interesting tidbits hidden in the software release there.
Any thoughts on that? Ahmed, go ahead.
Hey, with the integration with Grok, I think that's like inevitable. The latency problem needs to be solved with speaking with AI. I haven't seen a good product out there that has solved that yet. I think if you ask a question and have to wait, 6-7 seconds to get the answer. I mean, although everyone else's voice assistant in cars is quite horrible, so it might still compete, but that's probably a little bit down the line.
I would probably do like maybe a local neural net that can process certain commands, like for example, change the climate, set the navigation destination, things like that, and can optimize for latency on like common requests, and then maybe fall back on unknown commands or more broader requests to something like Grok. And there probably would be some latency there. You could optimize it by streaming the audio in real time and then transcribing it and passing it into the LLM. But obviously, there is going to be some latency there. And that's just kind of a reality of the technology today. And hopefully comes down over time. And I mean, what would be really cool is if they could figure out a way to run uh, some quantized version of Grok locally on the car. And that could maybe provide some voice assistant functionality. That would at least reduce the latency and availability somewhat. But I'm not sure if it's really practical or would get the same results as the larger Grok model running on the server.
I think everybody's going to be very shocked very soon about the latency issue in voice AI interaction is going to be gone very soon. So there's I have an app on my phone right now in test flight from a guy named Rick Burton, and there is zero latency. You can interrupt it, and it's amazing. So that'll be out there very quickly soon.
Thank you. Scott?
You brought up about upcoming features, and you said something about profiles. Were you referring to profile settings or security limitations that you can set for other profiles on your car, or is that also applied to like the app? So let's say you have a secondary user and you want to remove some of the features that they have on the app that you can control as the primary app user on your car.
Oh, nothing from me. But it
And
looks
maybe
like
we don't know.
Well, I called on you, so you have to say something.
okay. Polestar delays annual report due to accounting errors.
Oh, boom! There we go. Look at that. That's crazy. When did that come out? Because I actually saw some interesting. When did that news come out?
Just a few minutes ago.
That's really interesting because throughout today, I saw some renewed interest in my Polestar article from like a month or two ago. That's really weird. Anyway, yeah, I think we're gonna start seeing some of that with the EV makers that are unprofitable. They've been kind of pushing out their eventual demise with various ways. And I think Rivian.
Someone just divested from Polestar, didn't they? One of their parents. It was Geely or maybe Volvo. Volvo, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they divested, but I think they kind of said we're not going to support it or something along those lines. But yeah, maybe we can look at the specifics. Machine.
I just noticed that you try to shortchange me already. I don't know if you think you can really
What?
work behind my back. I noticed in this coffee bet I made with Michael that you put a bet that production would be greater than 360,000. 460,000. Unbelievable. Luckily, I'm an astute, highly attentive person, attention to detail, and notice your tricks. Can't get it past me.
Okay, so he liked the post way before he pointed this out. So he implicitly agreed with it. I took screenshots. I was like, oh wow, I won the jackpot here.
Wow, this is disturbing.
That's so
that
funny.
you would sit there
That's so
taking
funny.
screenshots.
Okay, fine. I'll fix it. Sorry about that. My apologies.
I just found it funny.
Any trading done on this bet will be reimbursed, and the exchange will eat the loss. How about that? I just fixed it. There you go. Are you happy?
Partially.
It's so funny.
He's upset I caught him in the act.
You caught me with my pants down, I guess you could say.
Yes, sure.
All right. What else do we need to talk about? Machine, what do you think about Green the Omni's thread?
I literally wasn't paying attention. I was doing work. Sorry.
Okay. Let me just pin this up here and see what else did he have to say. Omar gave us a good overview.
Machines on the spaces at work. Good thing he doesn't work for Elon.
I definitely. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so I pinned Green the Omni's post at the top thread. Amazon Music Playback Sport, beginning of what it looks like Tesla voice assistant. In quotes, Tesla voice assistant. That would be activated by a wake word, aka car always listening for it. Okay. Narrated by Jenny Neutral Voice by Microsoft. X11 compositor Compton. Previously, QT car was its own compositor. What does that mean, Omar?
X11 is a window. It's a technical detail you don't need to know about.
Okay. But I want to know. I'm curious now.
X11 is a window manager for Linux. So it manages the layout of the elements on the screen. So it's a technical detail on how the UI is rendered.
Yeah, I didn't need to know that. Let's see. FFmpeg expanded GPL. You guys are butchering these words, obviously. Since previously it was only
No, actually, you
present
said
on
it
other
perfectly correct.
Oh, great.
FFmpeg, yeah.
Nice. Oh, great.
FFmpeg is an open source tool for audio and video processing, and Green is implying that they're violating the GPL license by not, sharing their source code or something.
All right. Confirmation dialog for rerouting. Scary message for service mode. User data erase added. New track mode windows with a bunch of settings about stability control and whatnot. Restricted drivers that have extra restrictions. Profile icon will have training wheels attached. Driver occupancy sensor. Resistive pad in the seat is on the way out. Interesting.
Probably being replaced with Vision.
Right, exactly. Another pack type that affects weight. Remember how LiFePO packs are heavier but don't add extra capacity? Now there's another one that affects weight in a different amount. Okay. Wishbone wheels.
For the new Model 3 Performance. And LiFePO means lithium iron phosphate.
Whatever happened to ambient lighting, a front bumper cam for Model S? Well, it's all still there underneath as valid config options and such, but I don't know when Tesla decides to start installing that.
I think this kind of explains like why Elon's so upset about leaks, you know? Because you think about like Tesla Scope, and he's like, "Oh, front bumper camera, it's about to ship." And think about how many people didn't buy the Model S or Model X because they were waiting for that.
Right.
Like, could it have been the difference between being over 400,000 and not? And then after that, he went quiet. Like, Tesla Scope stopped working for a little bit. Then after that, he just stopped saying anything. So I think they probably like had a talk with him in private and were like, "Listen, we're gonna pull your API access if you keep leaking stuff." You know, so
Right.
they're getting serious. Kind of reminds me of Jobs. He was crazy about secrecy.
Hey, Omar, I guess it's true they got too many orders for the new Model 3 Performance in red because of that little thing they did to the pricing the day before I was going to hit the order button.
Sorry, what?
They changed you can't get the tax incentive now on the 3 Performance if you order red. The first few days, boy, it was sure available, and then they switched that. I
Yeah,
guess they had too many orders coming in.
I had to change my order from Ultra Red to Stealth Gray, which is still a great color, and it's 2,000 cheaper. But I did definitely want the Ultra Red, so it's unfortunate that the government has such a stupid set of rules. And I hope that the next Congress can hopefully improve the tax credit.
I had a question for you, Omar. You posted earlier about what you think, or maybe a rendering of what the Cybercab would look like. What are your thoughts about like what the interior is going to be like if it's fully autonomous, or when it's fully autonomous?
I think more with less is really the idea. So, can we create a car that actually feels more comfortable, more spacious, and nicer than a regular car while also being physically smaller? So use up, the entire space for essentially a single row of passengers, 2 or 3 seats. And you don't have to follow traditional car design. You can really you know, it opens up Pandora's box really for what you can do with design. I think for the exterior, a stainless steel exterior might make sense, leveraging some of what they've learned from the Cybertruck. The name Cybercab certainly does seem to suggest that, although in the past they have denied that it's going to be stainless steel. But I think it just makes so much sense for a robotaxi, right? I mean, you don't want these robotaxis to look all scratched up and their paint's messed up, which is what they'll inevitably look like, right? They're not going to be driving around with spotless paint. So I think the stainless steel makes a lot of sense. And then, inside you'd probably just have like a big screen or maybe even individual screens for the users, great entertainment options, a great sound system, the ability to stretch out your legs, really nice seats. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out on 8/8.
You don't think they would put like two benches that sort of face each other in the car, since you don't really need to face forward anymore, and also kind of makes glass windows obsolete. You don't need that if you're not driving and need to physically see outside, so you could make sure everything is going the way it's should. You could probably just look outside with cameras. The front of the car will
It's
probably.
possible. They could do something like that, definitely.
Yeah, and I would think if it's just a cab, so you're not really worried too much about the design of the car that you're rolling or showing up in as much. Um, you can probably the front of the car still needs to sort of be aerodynamic, so you would still need a lip on it. But the back of the car could ultimately be a bigger trunk like an SUV or a hatchback, right? It doesn't need to be sleek and look sexy anymore. This is my thoughts, at least. Or like a table in the middle
You
between the two
know,
benches would be pretty
I
cool
bet
too.
it's still gonna look sexy.
That's probably true. Yeah.
You know, the Cybertruck is such a hit. It's crazy. Like I was just doing these flower deliveries, and this Filipino woman, this old Filipino woman, like in her 50s or something, comes up to us and she's like, oh my God, I have a Model Y. Like, I saw your Cybertrucks. Like, I had to, you know, come see them. She's like, can I take a picture? And she's taking pictures. Then she gives me her phone. She goes, can you take a picture of me with your Cybertruck? I'm like, sure. I take the picture. I give her back her phone. She's like, oh my God, thank you so much. This made my day. Then like some black guy comes up and he's like, damn, look at these Cybertrucks. Like, and then he's like taking pictures of it. Like everybody just loves this thing.
Hi.
And I'm at
Um,
the traffic light, and my dad just happened to be on the other side, and he's like, wow, that thing just looks so beautiful.
Hi. People is being
Andrew, you have to stay on mute until I call on you.
hi.
Okay. All right. Omar, do you want to finish your story?
The
Or did the
point
moment
is,
pass?
people just love how this thing looks, the Cybertruck. They find it to be like it has this really beautifully simple form. And everybody said, oh, this is ugly. You know, I think this design team really knows what they're doing. So I'm really excited to see what they have for this next gen robotaxi vehicle. I think Franz said it was his favorite vehicle they've done yet.
Yeah. Brandon, did you just sign up for Patreon? Is that the same Brandon?
Yeah, I did.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say a couple things. I don't think the seats in the robotaxi are gonna be facing backwards. I mean, maybe this is just me, but I get super motion sick. And if I was going backwards in a car that was braking and accelerating, I'd be super unhappy. Unlike a train, which is pretty, constant. Um, I think it'll be their most aerodynamic vehicle. They're gonna want to get cost down per mile as low as possible to be the most competitive. And then Omar, it seems like a lot of Asian ladies or older Asian ladies really like your Cybertruck. I don't know if that's just because you're in San Francisco, but you were talking about your Uber driver and now this old Filipino lady.
No, you're right. A lot of old Asian ladies really love the Cybertruck, and this is such a transcendent product. Like people are like, "Oh, our truck driver's going to like it," but I have sold them to truck drivers. Like my uncle is a contractor. He said, "Oh, this is the perfect next truck for me." And you have a lot of those use cases as well, but also celebrities, just random people. Like this has much broader appeal than just a truck, which is a huge segment in itself. So honestly, I could see global demand for the Cybertruck at 900,000 to 1 million units long term. I don't think it's crazy. And I think they're not just demoing it around the world just for the hell of it. I think they do actually plan to expand it to other markets eventually.
Great. Any other
How
questions, comments? Please request to speak. This space will end in about 30 minutes. The space will end in about 30 minutes.
Omar, how
Ahmed
much of that do
and
you
then
think?
Cyber.
Sorry, Iman.
Go ahead.
How much of that do you think is due to like it being a novelty product and like the whole celebrity thing, right? As soon as these things are all over the roads, the celebrities are gonna ditch you, right? Um, yeah. How much of it is novelty product compared to it actually being super iconic, and everybody wants one type of car.
This isn't a novelty. It's actually a really good vehicle. Like, the exterior is nothing compared to how it drives. The thing rides smoother than the Mercedes EQS we have, which has a smoother ride than the Model S. But the Cybertruck's even better than that. Obviously, it has a bigger ride height, bigger tires, that type of thing. So it's just an incredible driving experience. It's so much fun to drive. Like, you can be going fast down these curvy roads like in Big Sur, and it's just like slicing through warm butter. The steering just makes it so easy. It's this massive vehicle, but it drives like a luxury sports car. And you can maneuver it even in San Francisco, even better than the Model S. Like, it really just is an incredible vehicle. Aside from, obviously being, iconic, I think, like MKBHD said, already iconic. I think it is. People are coming up, they're looking at it all the time. I've never seen this kind of reaction from a product. But the really crazy thing is when you actually start driving it, and the driving feel, the comfort, especially after FSD is activated on this thing, and it's the only self-driving truck. I mean, even if it looked like a normal truck, I think this thing would be a huge hit. The striking design just sort of like brings attention to it on another level.
Brandon, JT, FSD Adam. And sorry, Brandon, Cyberdad, and JT, FSD.
Yeah, I think there's already precedent. So with the iPhone, it's a status symbol, but everybody has one. I mean, given the Cybertruck is, 60 to 120 times more expensive depending on what you're getting. But everybody has one, and if you don't, it's kind of like, what's wrong with you? So, especially because a lot of these celebrities have the Foundation series Cybertruck, most people don't have access to that, so they got like the first. So they're gonna keep that around, especially because of everything Omar said with, the feel of driving is just so superior to almost anything else, especially for the size of the vehicle.
JT. Cyberdad.
Yeah, I speaking of Cybertruck, I'm driving with it right now. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
No. Yeah, asking if you can hear me is just no. JT, unnecessary. You don't need to say, you don't need to ask. We can hear you. If we can't hear you, I'll tell you. JT. Okay, JT isn't talking. FSD Adam.
Yeah, I got a question. As in, do you think trades companies are going to start buying Cybertrucks for their haul, as in like buying 3 or 4 of them for the company in general?
Yeah. I think the potential is huge. Like, go check out Ford's latest earnings, and they actually break out their EBIT margin between their retail sales to dealers, their EV sales, and their direct sales to commercial customers. Now, the bread and butter of Ford's business is selling these commercial vehicles to governments. You're talking about local government fleets, corporate fleets, buying the F-150. That is their bread and butter. And they make fat margins on that, and they're good at it. They've been doing it for 100 years. They have great relationships with those companies, and it's very lucrative for them. But we've got a product that can reduce their total cost of ownership by eliminating gas and eliminating accidents with FSD and eliminating maintenance. So a lot of these fleets are already starting to look at, for example, Model Ys, police officers, for example. With the Cybertruck, if they can really go after that market, it's a very lucrative market. They just, regularly continue buying vehicles. And it's an easy sell because you tell them, look, you're not polluting and you're actually bringing down your operating cost. So I think the potential of Cybertruck for replacing a lot of those, for example, Ford Pro type loads with something that's electric, I think Tesla's going to be able to produce at volumes and prices that are actually going to enable fleets to do that. And I see them actually extending the line
just like they extended the Model 3 line with the Model Y SUV version, if they could do a cyber SUV where they did a third row of seats and a trunk instead of a bed, that I think would be very high volume as well in North America.
MB.
Yes, Omar. Have you? I don't know if you've ever driven an R1T, but when you talk about the plushness of the Cybertruck, the R1T is the same way. It drives better than my wife's S. Have you driven an R1T? This would be a question for Kyle Connor, but I can't ever ask him this question.
Yeah, I've driven an R1T, and I mean, briefly, I've driven it for like 15 minutes, and it's nice. It's got an air suspension as well, and a higher ride height. But the Cybertruck definitely, in my view, has a better driving feel. The suspension is, I think, a little bit more advanced. It has more settings in terms of how high and low it goes. It feels a little smoother to me. And in particular, the steer by wire is the biggest distinction. Obviously, Rivian has a traditional sort of steering wheel, but the Cybertruck's ability to just sort of, how maneuverable it is and how you can just drive down a curvy road. You can really drive with one hand. It's so easy because you only have one turn of the wheel. So that I think really sets the driving experience apart. Although, the Rivian R1T does have an air suspension as well and a pretty good ride.
JT.
Omar, what's your best guess as to how much the Cybertruck will be worth in about a year, wholesale pricing?
Well, according to the Cybertruck order page, in a year, Tesla plans to offer a $60,000 version. That would be 53 ish without with the point of sale credit if you qualify. So I think that's a pretty competitive price. I think the ASP for trucks is around 60K. Truck sales have actually been declining a little bit because the ASPs are too high. A well-equipped truck like a Denali, for example, or something could be in the six-figure range easily these days. So I think if they can come in with something around the 60K range for a base model and get it down to 53, that's going to be something that is very competitive for truck buyers and is also within reach for your Model 3 and Y buyers who want to upgrade to something a little bit nicer.
Media.
Yes, I forgot who said it earlier, but just like they were alluding to with the Cybertruck, Tesla has never made anything that they couldn't use, as a different platform. The Model 3, the and the Model Y, and then the Cybertruck, and even the Semi. The Semi looks like it could be converted to like an RV or some kind of bus, and they don't engineer a platform for no reason, and that's just the comment that I wanted to add.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Please request to speak. Otherwise, we're going to end the space. Did the off-road mode for the Cybertruck go out yet, Omar?
Sorry, what did you say?
The off-road mode update, software
Yeah.
update, did that go out yet? Maybe why not?
I actually just
Did you try
installed it on my car. I'm about to go check it
nice.
out in the garage.
Overland mode, more consistent handling and better overall traction while driving on rock, gravel, deep snow or sand. Baja mode, vehicle balance is improved and the vehicle handles more freely when stability assist is set to minimal. Locking differentials, dual motor, all-wheel drive, off-road mode, uneven on slippery terrain. If a wheel has limited or no traction, Cybertruck can direct that torque to the opposite wheel. In off-road mode, choose from locking differentials options on the vehicle status area or in the off-road app. Front locking differential, trail assist. So we're gonna take your Cybertruck off-roading.
Shit, maybe I'll take it right now. I just got the off-road mode, so I don't need
Welcome.
roads anymore. I'll just drive straight off the road.
Come to Austin.
Yeah,
Cyber
I'm going to
tent
come to
mode.
Austin soon.
Yeah,
I do want to see a Starship launch, so maybe I can come drive to Austin and pick you up, and we can go to Starbase in the Cybertruck.
sounds good. Yeah, that's great. Sounds great.
That'd be really cool to see in person.
Yeah, I haven't seen one yet. Ride and handling with a load. Adaptive suspension now estimates payload more accurately and automatically adjusts damping to deliver a more comfortable ride and more consistent, confident handling. Cyber tent mode levels the suspension so you can sleep comfortably on a flat surface near a cyber tent. Also keeps its tonneau cover open to accommodate your tent. Lights, AC, and outlets will stay on as well if enabled. Yeah.
All right, I'm in my Cybertruck now.
Driving to Austin.
Just looking at the update. All right, we
Okay,
got
cool.
off-road mode, terrain options in Baja mode, locking differentials. You can now engage the locking differentials. If a wheel has limited or no traction, Cybertruck will direct torque to the opposite wheel. This helps the wheel continue to move in low traction environments.
I literally just read all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're reading the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
JT.
Yeah, so I'm driving home right now in my Cybertruck, and just a quick comment. I had a professional company come to my house this past Sunday to do a, a glass coating protection, on the car, just to help with the fingerprints and just overall protection of the glass, on the paint of the car, hydrophobic material. And after 6 hours of being at the house, the guy came out to me and told me that the material the car is made out of is absorbing the glass coating and it's not sticking. So basically, he had us, just put it on the glass plastic trims inside of the car, but he could not put it on the actual, um, metal portion of the car.
Okay, Cyber Dad.
Yeah, I just want to add a little more on the Cybertruck. There's so many different things on the Cybertruck that to talk about, and whenever I get in the parking lot and people stop me, ask me questions, and normally I just take a lot of time to explain. But really hope one day Tesla would have enough inventories or so to at least put some demos out there, because it's not really, the words cannot really describe like how it rides or drives. This is something that really every single person needs to experience by themselves. So someday if I get tired and people ask me like, what do you think? What's the difference? And I just can't really. I just tell them, besides the wheels and tires are same, everything else is different. But it really is.
Yeah.
Everything else is different here. There's so much.
I'm
so
surprised
many,
that
so
we
many
haven't.
things.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised that we haven't yet seen a Cybertruck owner that kind of prepared pamphlets to just hand out instead of answering the same questions. Brandon.
I kind of put my hand up by accident because I'm on the computer, but and it's glitchy. But I'll just say this: I think they're gonna have demos, definitely, but right now they're kind of production constrained for the amount of Cybertrucks that they've already sold. So all the Cybertrucks that are being made are pretty much going straight out to people when they're ready. So in the future, they definitely will.
All right, thank you. All right. This space has been going on for close to 3 hours. We're going to end it here. Going to try to keep future ones to about 2 hours. Keep it tight. now that the earnings season's over, we can go back to 2-hour range, I think. If there's a space going on tonight, I'll join as listener. Otherwise, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody, and take care.